There's not a single subject or object which is the solution of the energy transition. Not clear way, not transparent way, what the public has to expect. This is for the society at large, which, well, I think ask for a reasonable transparency, that it is safe, that it is sound, and what the costs are. I expect that if they say it, we reassure you that that will be okay. So if it will be okay, what is the difficulty to show it? Seeing is believing. So show me. Don't trust me, but show me. That is what I asked them. Well, transporting bubbles with a tiny fraction of energy leakage is something which you have to take serious.
Today, we're joined by George Verberg, a man whose resume is so impressive it practically has its own resume. George has chaired more board meetings than most people can count, from Gasuni to the Clygondale's International Energy Program. He's been involved in everything from nuclear energy to cultural foundations, and somehow he still found time to advise energy councils and museums. If there's an energy sector related meeting, George is probably already chairing it. George, welcome.
Thank you.
For our audience, can you give us an introduction into who is George Verberg?
Well, I have quite a long experience of work nowadays because I'm an old man, if I may say so, with 82 years. And the main part of by the way, I am a general economist, studied at the Erasmus University in Rotterdam, and I have first worked at the Ministry of Education and Sciences in The Hague. Thereafter, I went to the Ministry of Economic Affairs, was deeply involved in assisting the respective ministers which I have served for economic affairs on the issue of energy policy. The last 6 years, I was Director General of Energy at this Ministry of Economic Affairs. Thereafter, I went to Gasuni, at that time a bundled company. Therefore, it was including the transportation branch as well as the gas trade branch. And at the time, I was the CEO of Gasuni, about 12 and a half years long. I also served the European Gas Association as a president for 2 terms, and I served the World Gas Organization, the IGU, International Gas Union, for also as its president. So, well, that's what challenging jobs, but also a lot of interesting professional fun. And thereafter, I have done quite a bit of boards which I joined, from nuclear enrichment to musea. Yes, as you already.
So that's basically more than enough to be overqualified for this interview. And I'm
Well, we
really
have to see
looking
that.
forward. George, tell me, is hydrogen the solution for the energy transition?
There's not a single subject or object which is the solution of the energy transition. But I'm convinced that hydrogen is part of the solution. We cannot do everything what is needed without having also access to hydrogen.
I've noticed your work and publications on LinkedIn, and they're really interesting to me. And this interview will mostly be pointed into pipelines for hydrogen. Can hydrogen pipelines be built fast enough to meet EU climate targets, or will they be too late?
That's a question which is too wide to answer because, as a old gas man, I've learned that you need a supply, you need a demand, and then you build your pipeline. It is not very handy to start with a pipeline and then hope for demand at one side of the pipeline and supply at the other side of the pipeline because sometimes that will not happen. So
Yeah.
take the right order, look at the market, see where you can expect your supply, see where you have your demand, and then you can use the pipeline as a transportation system from supply to demand.
So we're going back to some basic rules of economy here. Let's go to the safety and technical considerations. What are the biggest safety risks in repurposing gas pipelines for hydrogen?
Uh, the biggest safety risk, according to reports of institutions which are capable of assessing that, so that's not my own knowledge, but just as an old hand manager, you read reports in order to make your managerial decisions. And based on that approach, it is for me clear that the longitudinal fatigue cracks in pipelines are the most important safety issues in your existing and also new pipelines. And for that, you are in particular vulnerable if you have a volatile pressure system in your pipelines. And there, I think we enter into a very important issue of hydrogen being transported through pipelines uh, in this energy transition era, because it's quite often, and rightly so, I think, that hydrogen can be a good, let's say, alternative for backup of intermittent electricity production like wind and solar energy. But if you have said that, then you have implied that you are talking about gas turbines running on hydrogen, which can start and stop over with a switch of just a knob on your switch. And if that's the case, then you need to understand and take care of the pressure changes, the pressure volatility, which will occur. And if that's something for just a week, then it will not be very important. But if it's a structural transportation system, what it will be, of course, then you should be aware of that vulnerability, not only to the pipelines vulnerability and therefore to the outside world around the
Mm.
pipelines, but also for the grid owner, the electricity grid owner, because the electricity grid owner is very much responsible to deliver, to transport the electricity with the right frequency and the right voltage and other items which are important to have an electricity system which is in accordance with the needs of the installations which use electricity. And if you think that it's no problem that there is no wind suddenly because you expect that immediately the hydrogen fired turbines can start and produce with a generator electricity, that will be fast enough to maintain the quality of electricity. And if that's not the case, then you do not have a solution for the issue of intermittent electricity production, but you have an added problem because you are
Mm.
expecting that it will be help, but it is of no help because it's too late or too cumbersome in order to serve as the backup of wind and or sun energy. So it's a problem for two very important systems: the gas transportation system, because of the safety, the physical safety of the pipelines, and for the electricity grid owner who have to who has to serve the public at large, from industry to hospitals, with the right kind of electricity quality, because otherwise things in nowadays world will stop and don't run.
It's
So it's a
very
very
explanatory.
responsible issue.
Very explanatory answer. On top of that, how does hydrogen impact pipeline stability?
On top of that, pipeline stability, as I said, it's in particular the issue of the pressure volatility, which which are a safety issue. Um, Other items are perhaps not that much of a safety issue. At least I do not know. I have not understood that, apart from what I already mentioned, the brittlement of the pipeline metal is also mentioned, but I have not seen in the reports that that is an issue as comparable with this fatigue cracks of the pipeline. So I don't think we need to spend time on that. There is another issue with hydrogen in the pipeline system. That is that, as you know, hydrogen is only around one third of the energy content of methane. So you have a problem to solve. Coming back to the issue I just raised about the electricity grid, electricity quality, that you need to handle the hydrogen in the pipeline system with the compressors and the like, which take care of the fact that the energy content of hydrogen is only one third of the energy content of methane. So that is also a challenge to work that out in such a way that it is safe, sound, and reliable, in particular for the backup issue, which I mentioned before.
Have long term studies been conducted to ensure existing pipelines won't fail under hydrogen exposure?
Not that I'm aware of. I do know that there are, in particular in parts around, let's say, petrochemical industries, where you will find hydrogen pipelines, and there's also in the Netherlands, for instance, a pipeline between Terneuzen and between Dow and Jara, with filled with hydrogen, but that are pipelines which are not challenged as much as one should expect in a system where it is also serving as the backup for not blowing wind and not shining sun electricity production.
You just gave a great introduction to the next question. What specific areas of hydrogen infrastructure needs more testing?
Well, I think that the report from Tabodin and from TNO, which I've read, clearly indicates that, for instance, the compressors in the system are not in the present compressors are not up to the specifications which are needed for hydrogen, at least not fully enough, not adequate
Yeah.
to say, well, let's do that. It's also explicit mentioned
Mm.
in one of the reports that the compressors should be changed, whether that's an adaptation or whether it is
Yeah.
really a change that's remain to be seen. I do not know. Of course, they will take the least cost solution if it is safe, because
Yeah.
I'm convinced that the companies involved do know that they have to operate the whole system in a safe way.
Yeah.
Are responsible people, so I have no doubts about that. But sometimes one can take decisions in a later stage than is necessary, and in that case, the only solution is that you have to halt the transportation through the grid in order not to pass the safety limits.
I can see a lot of experience coming from your answers. Let's go to the economic part of things. Why could the cost of refitting the Dutch gas grid reach 5 to 6 billion euros?
Well, that's of course dependent also on what cost you all uh, consider to be part of the hydrogen transportation system. It's not one pipeline. It
Mm.
is, as I've understood it, is proposed that it has backbone, so-called backbone. It has lines from this backbone to the different industrial areas where they use and or make hydrogen, but also to what's called caverns in salt layers where you can store a lot of hydrogen. And these salt layers are laid there where the nature has decided to do so, not where mankind has decided to make industrial regions. So there is quite a distance between the storage systems as far as I have seen so far, and the regional industrial locations where they produce hydrogen and or use hydrogen. So then we come to the issue of how these transportation issues through the pipelines are being solved. That is with compressors, of course, but we just
Mm.
mentioned already that
Yeah.
the hydrogen is only one third. So you need to move 3 times the volume of moving methane in order to move the same content of energy from one point to another point. That's one. So that's one issue. So you need not only a pipeline, but you need also the compressors. And with the 1.5 billion, which I've read as a cost estimate, that was not including compressors. So there I have a big question mark because compressors, which can move hydrogen to the extent necessary because of their energy content, are quite expensive, not only in ordering and buying these compressors, but also in installing it, because we are not talking about a small compressor which you can put in your garage, as you will understand. It are huge
Yeah.
installations which are really beautiful objects from human ingenuity, but also very cumbersome in installing and getting at the place where you need them. So if you need several of those, then you are adding a lot of money of the costs. The third issue is the hydrogen itself, which you need in order to fill your uh, pipelines and to fill your storage caverns with so-called working gas, because as you know, there has to be working gas in a gas storage system, because otherwise you will never get it out. Uh,
Yeah.
so therefore, you need a lot of, let's say, debt capital be put in the storage system and in the line pack of the gas grid system. So uh, my my understanding of all this together, because producing hydrogen nowadays or the coming, let's say, 5 or 10 years will be a very costly affair. Scaling up the electrolyzers is not easy and cheap issue. So there we have also a lot of investments costs which you have to carry in order to make the whole grid system up to its purpose. Yeah? It's not nice to have a gas grid system which cannot handle the purpose for which it is intended to be used. So that's my answer why I expect that this is a Temenos project. If you really think that it is only 1.5 billion euros for the backup system, then you are talking in a, let's say, not clear way, not transparent way, what the public has to expect. And why is it important for the public? Because it's not a commercial operation. It is a state-owned company, 100% state-owned company, which has to serve the needs of the society as designed and agreed to by the government. So it's not a commercial issue where you can say, well, if the shareholders want to do what they like, then the risks are to them. So the pros and the cons, the red and the black figures are for the shareholder. This is for the society at large, which, well, I think ask for a reasonable transparency, that it is safe, that it is sound, and what the costs are.
This interview could be a good lesson for them based on all of your answers. How can hydrogen pipelines be cost effective when green hydrogen production remains expensive?
If green hydrogen remains expensive, and then I guess that you think in terms of above €5 a kilo, then I think that it will not be profitable, and not even break even exercise, and therefore one has to think about the question: do we really have to ask the taxpayers to put in all that money on a structural base, year on year on year? I
Mm,
think it's better to look for alternatives.
yeah, pretty straightforward. Can Rasuni justify the long term financial viability of hydrogen pipelines, given the high retrofitting and maintenance costs?
Uh, I think that they have still to show that. That's one of my questions I have raised, and you have seen that I suppose, questions about the safety issue. That's what we already have tackled, I think, of using pipelines which are already existing. Uh, I have raised questions about the fit for purpose. That is, that you play indeed the backup role by transporting the hydrogen fast enough and with enough pressure to make the backup turbines and electricity generation in as quick as necessary for the electricity grid. And I have raised questions about the cost as such. And of course, the fit for purpose will imply also certain costs to be made because we have just discussed about the compressors that in the
Mm.
report itself, which is also used by GasUni, it is stated that the compressors are not adequate to handle hydrogen.
How do you respond to their reassurance regarding the safety and costs?
That is the interesting thing of nowadays times, that it is a lot of transparency. I expect that if they say it, we reassure you that that will be okay. So if it will be okay, what is the difficulty to show it? I'm a manager at the time which have learned that don't trust me. That is nice saying, but seeing is believing. So show me. Don't trust me, but show me. That is what I asked them. Just make it public to those who want, that your statement that we can assure you that it is safe, sound, and cost effective, that is true within reasonable limits. There is nothing, it's not mathematics, but you
Mm.
understand what I mean.
George, you're giving evergreen lessons today. The basics. Why do you think Europe's 2030 timeline for hydrogen pipelines is unrealistic?
Because of the many difficulties we have not yet solved. The issue of scale up, upscaling hydrogen production, the issue of the demand is not coming fast. And of course, one can easily say, well, it is a chicken and egg, so let's put in the backbone in place. That is, of course, silly, because that is solving the issue of chicken and egg. Chicken and egg is demand and supply. But I can imagine that if you have a supplier ready to build, that he does so when he also knows that he has somewhere a demand, and then the pipeline owner can come in and say, if you do that, then I guarantee you that the pipeline will be in time in a safe way to handle the transport of the hydrogen.
Very clear. Is focusing on regional hydrogen clusters more practical than cross country pipelines?
Yeah, it's already a question of simple logic, that if you have a gas with a low energy content, then the last thing you would like to do is to transport those volumes with very low energy content. Then you are, well, transporting bubbles with a tiny fraction of energy you need. So please put the demand and supply as close to each other as possible, and only later on, when the volumes are growing, then there could come a time where longer transportation transportation distances could be effective, cost effective, and even perhaps energy effective. Although you never change, of course, the issue of the 1/3.
Yeah, pretty simple. What contingencies exist if hydrogen production or demand doesn't scale as anticipated?
I don't think that that question is a reasonable reflection of the reality. I think that you need a longer time scale uh,
Hmm.
in order to come towards full-fledged within the realm of hydrogen, full-fledged use of hydrogen. So I think that starting at regions like in the Rotterdam area or in the Eemshaven area or one of the other 5, 6 areas in the Netherlands where uh, people have experts have found out that they can make good use of hydrogen, that will develop, and then later on you could make a reasonable business case of a connecting of these regional pipelines. But there is a caveat in this issue because there are quite a few incumbents which are good companies in the present methane set, in the methane order of things, that they would like to keep it as close as possible as what they are used to. It's just a human way of handling because everything what's new is creates uncertainties which perhaps they do not like because they have no experience with it or because they are not entrepreneurs as one should expect. So there is a lot of drive, and you can read it in particular. I found that in the British report of called Project Union, which has the nicety that they show that they want to start on a regional base, which I think is the right way in order to get and use the time for the scale ups of production and demand of hydrogen, and then only later they will join make joints via pipelines between those regions. But nevertheless, that report, apart from this start at the regional base, is completely focused upon how can we get a liquid hydrogen market as soon as possible, which is the same as the methane market. There is no question whether one have to think out of the box about, hey, do we need to have exactly the same system with hydrogen, which is only 1/3 of the energy content of methane as we have nowadays with methane? Of course, I understand that the incumbents, which are good in trading, that they like to have the same, but perhaps the hydrogen is asking for something others, something different.
You're hitting all the right spots, and that can only come from experience. What alternative strategies, and now we're talking about alternatives, should Europe consider if hydrogen proves too costly?
I I'm also always an optimist. I cannot imagine that human ingenuity cannot create solutions for the cost issue at a certain point in time. It will not be possible within 3 years or 5 years, but I expect that within 10 years we can handle it at a lower cost base than now for the coming years. And therefore, I'm not looking for alternatives when it's never possible. I'm looking for alternatives as long as we are in this growth phase of lower cost and higher volumes.
What do you think about liquefaction and transport via tankers instead of pipelines?
Oh, no, that's not the issue. That will be at least as costly as by pipeline. So that's not a solution. I would expect, but I've not read reports about that, that it will be costlier than pipelines. And also, don't forget that the more, let's not change of title, but changes in a tanker, and then we're out of the tanker. That creates additional possibilities of leakage which you do not like to have. Uh,
Mm.
so, think about the LNG. Recent reports have shown that there is a lot of methane escaping, leaking in the whole train of LNG from the production well up to the, the customer. So if that's with methane, then with the much smaller molecule of hydrogen, you may
Yeah,
expect that that risk is at least also there, if not a larger risk of leakage. There's
yeah,
just about 2 days ago, there was a research report published about hydrogen leakage in the Eemshaven area of Groningen. And if I recall it well, they have found that there was some 4% hydrogen leakage in that regional area of the points which use or make hydrogen. So that is, let's say, a good warning that leakage is something which you have to take serious.
for sure. With battery and electrification technologies advancing rapidly, why should hydrogen pipelines be prioritized? Or should they at least?
I have not decided that pipelines should have a priority. I think that there is a good chance that the development of batteries is going faster than expected, faster than the way forward for hydrogen. So I would like to see a report in which they compare the possibilities of battery areas uh, vis-à-vis gas, hydrogen-fired electricity producer as a backup in case of you have no wind or no sun-produced electricity. And I would not be surprised seeing some short articles about batteries that the crossover where it becomes better and, and easier and less costlier to use batteries than to use hydrogen fired power stations.
Does promoting hydrogen pipelines risk extending fossil fuel as through the blue hydrogen rather than pushing for the decarbonization?
I think that risk exists, and I think that the fact that pipeline companies, whether it's in the UK or in the Netherlands or what have you, are pushing uh, before the time is ripe, is ready for it, using the pipelines for hydrogen is a sign which you should pick up also as a warning. Keep open your eyes for what reason it is done, for what reason it is pushed that way. So it could be that I make a very wrong assessment because we are talking about assessments, not about certainties and facts and figures. But I think it's good to keep your eyes open.
And finally, what, from your experience, what would be the recommendation or your recommendations for hydrogen market to advance in a proper way?
Well, that's go to the industrial region where you can find the demander and the supplier, or where someone will create a supply, electrolyzer building or so, like in Rotterdam area where Shell is starting to build one, and assist them in fulfilling that task. It is a pioneering task, so they could could make good use of some assistance, whether it was with some subsidy or some assistance with the permits necessary. That's all to be seen, and when it's a reasonable demand, one should consider that as, let's say, startup money or a startup effort of the government. But don't overdo it, and don't start with backbones.
You are giving me the answers that just making me ask more. So I have to ask another one that's really, I think, important. Do you believe that there will be hydrogen cars, trucks, and trains?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
And that's a big debate.
I like this one.
Okay, so I got my answer. That's clear.
Okay, and I think for many people which are interested in hydrogen, they know this one. So
Yeah, yeah. I believe they know that in all directions. George, thank you so much for being my guest today. It was an honor.
you're welcome.
Looking to amplify your brand in the hydrogen energy sector? Welcome to H2 Energy News, your go-to platform for impactful industry insights. Every month, we connect with over 80,000 visitors and generate more than 251,000 page views. Our reach is unmatched with over 1.2 million web impressions and a loyal social media following of 9,000 plus. Our newsletter reaches 77,000 plus subscribers, decision makers, industry leaders, and innovators. Want to target specific markets? Our geo-targeting capabilities cover Europe, the United States, and the MENA region. We reach key stakeholders, 27% senior executives, 32% directors, and 20% owners and partners. H2. Energy News isn't just a news platform, it's where the hydrogen energy community converges to shape the future. Join us and let's make an impact together. Visit energynews.biz and take your brand to the next level.